Hello there, lovely people, it's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and recently I've been rather rudely awakened by an awful lot of GameCube controllers. So I thought we might as well have a look at some of these, because with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate coming out and everything, loads of people are looking at GameCube controllers and saying, they any good? We're going to be looking at 4 different kinds. We are of course going to be looking at the OG original GameCube controller. Right here, this is a bit of an old one that I've got, but I've got a slightly newer one as well, which doesn't have quite as dodgy a control stick, so we're golden. We're also going to be looking at PowerA's wired GameCube style controller here, which is wired. Not to mention PDP's wired Fight Pad Pro, which they haven't called GameCube for some reason. And we can't possibly forget PowerA's wireless GameCube controller. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling, let's dive right into things. Okay, I think I'm going to start off with the wired PowerA GameCube style controller, simply because it was the one that was easiest to hand. This thing comes in a variety of colours, including classic black and, can I find it? Yes! Classic purple, and if this has given something away, I don't know what has. Because yes, the wire can come out if you like. It's just a standard micro USB, but it's got a lovely little sort of bit of block on the end, I don't know what you'd call it, which is sort of strain relief because it goes inside this slot here, so it really doesn't wiggle about at all, which is really nice. It's got a little ridge on the back as well, so you can only put it in one way. Really lovely little touch there. I genuinely really like that. Let's be honest, looking at this thing, you'd be hard pushed to say that this isn't inspired by the GameCube controller. In fact, it's almost a complete carbon copy, except for it's got additional buttons, like the home button and the screenshot button. Capture button, as well as an L and R button up here as well, so you got these little bumpers, as well as ZL and ZR, which are now these. Another change is the D-pad is actually of a decent size this time. The classic D-pad on the GameCube controller OG is frankly absolutely rubbish, so really nice that they've upgraded it here. Overall in the hand it feels really good, you know, it just feels like a GameCube controller, to be honest. There's very little that's different about it. The only thing is that the buttons have quite a lot of travel on them, and that goes for all of them. I don't quite know why that is, and just to clarify, yep. The sticks click in as well. It's basically got all the buttons that you'd have on a Pro controller, but in a GameCube form factor. But yeah, the travel on the buttons is weird, and I mean, it's not a deal breaker, it's not the end of the world, but it is kind of annoying and it makes them kind of loud. The L and R buttons, though, are a big improvement on the Z button that was there before, which was really hard to push in, and now it's just 2 nice, soft shoulder buttons, basically. All round, nice. Next, let's have a look at the PDP wired Pro Fight Pad controller, Pro Fight Pad GameCube Pro Fighter controller. This is going for quite a different approach. This is a much more sort of chunky and much more sort of modern styled controller, but with obviously GameCube inspirations to say the least, like the button layout and the overall feel and look of it. But it gives you a little bit more to grip onto overall. It's just a little bit chunkier, a little bit firmer, and things like the shoulder buttons at the top are more like the Pro controller shoulder buttons, the ZL and ZR at least, rather than being the long sort of semi-analog triggers that you get on the original GameCube controller, and indeed the PowerA wired one. This one obviously is Mario themed, but it comes in a variety of flavors, including Link or Zelda if you like, and indeed Pikachu. Again, like the PowerA wired controller, it's got all the buttons that you'd expect, and yet they all function fine. The sticks click in as well. It's generally just, it's a Pro controller, but just sort of GameCube shaped and wired. Sadly, the D-pad on this one is the same size as the original GameCube controller D-pad, and it means it's quite small and a bit fiddly to use, which is a shame. The C-stick is a little party piece for this one because, as you can probably tell, it's yellow and grey, which seems weird, but there is a good reason for it because it only blooming comes off, doesn't it? And it comes with an alternative replacement cap that you can simply slide on like this. And therefore you've got more sort of 2 standard control sticks rather than the C nipple. This is a really nice thing, and it's a real shame that the other controllers don't offer it, because I much prefer having the modern style, you know, 2 twin sticks like this over having the C stick. I love the C stick, don't get me wrong, but it's an old design. Let's move on to something a bit more modern. But there is a downside with the sticks as well, and I don't know why, but for some reason, the right one is just about the right size, but the left one is chuffing enormous. It's difficult to show on camera, but it is a long way to move this thing. When you're going through menus, it's It's not good. Even the right stick or the C stick is also larger than the other controllers, and I have absolutely no idea why. It means that every movement has to be really big, which isn't really what I want personally. Also, holding it in the hand, it just sort of feels a little bit odd. It feels like it's trying to be halfway between a Pro controller or just a modern controller and a GameCube controller, and it doesn't quite work. Everything feels very spaced out. It feels like a very large controller. Even for me with my large hands, everything feels enormous and not really in a good way. It's comfortable enough, but everything being so far apart is a mark against it, sadly. It's a shame as well because the build quality is lovely and it feels really smooth in the hand, and the plastic is just matte enough without being really sort of lumpy and stuff like that, at least on a microscopic level. And yeah, it just feels very sort of maybe even slightly satin, and just overall feels really nice, but it's just uncomfortable with how much you got to move your thumbs, and there's nowhere for my middle fingers to go at the back. And just like the PowerA controller, weirdly long travel on the buttons. Why? The cable is also just attached, it can't be detached or anything like that, which is generally fine, but it means that you're stuck using this cable no matter what you want to do, and also it just makes it a little bit less easy to store, which again is a shame. Moving on to contender number 3 in the order that isn't the same as the one when I started, the wireless PowerA GameCube style controller type thing. To be honest, this is exactly the same as the wired variant, except it is wireless, obviously, and as such, it runs on 2 AA's rather than an internal battery, which is a shame, but you know, it's okay. And obviously it's wireless, which I've already said. I meant to say another thing. It also has the bonus of having motion controls in it, which means that obviously Splatoon and stuff like that becomes genuinely viable if you want to play something other than Smash Bros. Why would you want to do that? This one also has a mild advantage over the wired version because of the batteries. It gives it slightly more weight and it just feels a little bit nicer in the hand, a little bit better weighted. I mean, some people will probably love a nice light controller, in which case the wired one is ideal, but for me, I like to have a little bit of heft, you know? Little bit of heft, not too much, just a bit. But yeah, just like the other one, wireless connectivity is good. Just like the other one, the build quality is good. Not quite as good as the PDP one, it feels a tiny bit cheaper, but really there's not a lot in it. And yeah, it's also got the big D-pad, which is another good. And lastly, the original GameCube controller. Now, this is, you know, this is obviously the most accurate to a GameCube controller because it bloomin' is one! Feels fantastic, everything feels exactly as you'd expect it because it's the original controller. There are some downsides compared to the other ones. For example, C-stick is just the C-stick, can't be changed, just like the PowerA ones. The sticks cannot be clicked. There's no additional function buttons here like the home button and the minus button and the screenshot button. There's only a Z, so there's only an R, not an L, and there's a ZL and ZR, which are analog here, but it doesn't make any difference on the Switch. D-pad is rubbish as well, like the D-pad on the GameCube controller original. It's just not good. It's really mushy, really imprecise, and really tiny. Not a good time. I mean, if you're mainly playing Smash, that doesn't really come into it, but you know, I like to cover all bases. Biggest thing about this one for me though, oh, the buttons have got so little travel on them. It's just wonderful. There's still a bit, so you don't feel like you're going to press things accidentally, but it's so much smaller. The travel is so much shorter than it is on the other controllers. And for me, that's a big deal. I don't know why, it just is. Another disadvantage of the original, though, is that it uses a GameCube port, which means you can use it on a GameCube, which is a good thing, but it also means you're going to need an adapter to use it on the Switch, which is just another thing to buy. But if you want to get 4 controllers, then you only have to buy 1 adapter, so it's got that going for it at least. And it is just, it is the nicest to hold in the hand. You can just tell it's official. So those are all the features of the different controllers. I think they all have their merits, to say the least. I think for me, if I were to rank them, yeah, I'm going to rank them. I do want to say that I don't think that any of these are bad controllers. I think they're all good controllers, I really do. But obviously, when ranking them, one of them's got to come last, one of them's got to come first. Doesn't mean the one in last isn't still good. And so in 4th place, it's the PDP Wired Pro Fight Pad. It's a bloody shame because I really like the designs on them and I really like, you know, the bright colors compared to the others, which are fairly straightforward overall. but there are just too many sort of little issues, like the old tiny D-pad, the massive sticks for some reason. The changeable sticks is very nice. Also the plus minus home and screenshot capture button, I'm never gonna get that right. They're all buttons that feel quite cheap. They're just the really cheap, loud buttons, you know, those sort of those ones. The triggers at the back feel okay, but my fingers rest there, and I have to do that. Which isn't so bad, but it just feels a bit uncomfortable given the shape. By no means a bad controller, and if you like the idea of having something a bit brighter and maybe a little bit more modern, and with the opportunity to have one of these standard looking sticks on top, then this is definitely a contender. In third place, it is the PowerA wired GameCube controller. It is really good, and it's got all the function buttons that you want from a modern controller, but it's not quite there. The build isn't quite as good as the official one, as you might expect, and the travel... I do really like the larger D-pad as well, but I don't see many people buying this controller beyond Smash, to be honest. Although it is good for other things as well, people are going to be buying these for Smash, so I have to judge it like that. In second place... I can't believe I'm saying this, it's the official one. It is great, it is lovely, but it is limited to being wired unless of course you've got a Wavebird, but it is still lacking in certain features. I mean, the fact that it is wired is a big pain in the arse, to be honest. You can only use it in Super Smash Bros, although actually, no, you could use it in other things, couldn't you? I don't know how it works now. But it's lacking a lot of buttons. You can't take a screenshot with this controller, and you can't record something really cool that happens in Smash, which is something that I'm definitely going to want to do. And I love the capture button to death. I want to be able to use it without connecting another controller. There is the old argument of the Wavebird, of course, but these aren't being made anymore. You have to buy a second-hand one, or if you're lucky, new old stock, and they are expensive and they're not easy to come by, so I don't know, I didn't really feel I could include it in the list and look at it, but I mean, it's normal GameCube controller, but wireless. I love my Wavebird to pieces, I absolutely do. But Nintendo aren't making them anymore, and realistically, you're gonna have to do some hunting to find one of these, and so I don't think I can really include it on this list. Not properly anyway, although I do. I love it to pieces. And so naturally, that means that number one goes to PowerA's wireless GameCube controller. I genuinely didn't think this one would win out, but it does. I mean, it's got all the features of the official GameCube controller and nearly the same build overall. It's not quite as good, but it very nearly is. And it's got the better D-pad, and it's got the extra buttons, including the bloody capture button. And the fact that it's got motion controls and it's wireless means that if you really do want a GameCube-style controller to play Smash on the Switch, I genuinely recommend this one the most. Unless you want to go really hardcore, in which case you're obviously going to go for the official one anyway, so why are you watching? Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you talk hoarsely about GameCube controllers to that subscribe button, and be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye. Okay, I'm going to put a little rambly addendum at the end here just because I'm knackered, I really am. I don't know whether you could tell during the video, but I really am absolutely bloody exhausted at the moment, and my throat is playing up, so really, I'm not in the best frame to be doing this video, but I wanted, you know, I had to do something, and I wanted to get this done, and yeah, I mean, I know it does sound like I'm singing the praises of this one so much, but it really is just because it is a Pro controller in the shape of a GameCube controller. And, you know, if you just want to play Smash by itself, and you don't mind, you know, you don't want to record stuff, you don't want to, you know, you don't mind being plugged into the Switch itself, then yeah, by all means, the original official Pro controller, or one of the new ones, you know, made by Nintendo, is definitely probably your best bet. But overall, as a controller, this one wins out just because it's got so much going for it. It's got so much going on. And, you know, even if you were to buy an official GameCube controller and an adapter, this wireless one with motion controls and loads more buttons is the same price, which is a big deal, especially to me because I like to penny pinch. PDP one disappointed me, annoyingly. I really like the stick. To be honest, actually, I like the idea of trying to take this stick, and maybe even that stick as well, and sticking them in here, seeing if that works. So I might try that at some point. But yeah, this was a shame because I was really looking forward to this one. It feels chunkier in the hand, but it is just too big. It feels like it's been tested with gorillas or something. It's not a bad controller, but you know, it just sort of, some design decisions just seem weird. Wired PowerA is still good, but yeah. I really wish Nintendo would just come out with like a Wavebird. With NFC, all the buttons and that sort of thing, that would really make my day. But I don't see them doing it, to be honest. So for the time being, I think PowerA have done a bloody good job. And obviously it's smaller than the Wavebird, which isn't hard.